What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another Tottenham update. Before we get into it, do head over to all podcasting platforms, as we are now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts to come soon, but all various different other podcasting platforms as well. We are there, as well as written content on WeAreTottenhamTV.com, as you can see at the bottom of your screen. But let's get straight into it, talking about potential transfer news. And we've got some quotes from Heung-min Son and Pape Matar Sarr to get into as well. But let's start off with this one, talking about Arda Guler of Real Madrid, as according to reports in Spain, Spurs are showing a firm interest in signing Arda Guler from Real Madrid alongside Bundesliga leaders Bayer Leverkusen. They are the main candidates to land him, may it be on loan or a permanent deal. Spurs have built a strong relationship with the players' camp, which could be key, and there's a feeling that Guler may be bumped down the pecking order at the Santiago Bernabeu by the new faces that arrive in the off-season. Real Madrid paid 20 million euros to sign Guler from Fenerbahce last summer, a transfer that was hotly contested between Manchester City, PSG and Barcelona. However, he's only been able to play 89 minutes for Real Madrid this season, being out till November through injury. He's made 4 appearances in all competitions so far, and Guler has been named in the matchday squad for about 10 games all year. So it could be unlikely for Real Madrid to consider letting him go permanently at this stage after fighting for him so hard, but a loan could suit all parties. I mean, they say a loan could suit all parties, but I don't really think a loan suits Tottenham unless it's got an option or obligation to buy at the end of it.
Yeah, obviously he's very frustrated for Guler because he came in with a lot of fanfare and a lot of people saying he's going to be the next big thing. He was obviously a really talented youngster, can play in the kind of the number 10 or on the right, playing for Fenerbahce, was getting goal contributions fairly regularly, even at the age of 16. So when they signed him, it was like he was really highly sought after, but he picked up quite a serious injury at the beginning of the season. That's really hampered his progress. And obviously he hasn't been involved as much. And when you look at maybe Real Madrid fans, when they look at Barcelona, you see Gavi, Pedri, you got Yamal playing regularly, and you look at your own, wonder kid, and he's struggling to hit a game, and maybe it puts in your mind, oh, is he not good enough? All that kind of stuff. And as well, the expectations of Madrid are so high, but obviously he's only 18, so I don't think they're going to be writing him off anytime soon. And I agree with you. For Spurs' point of view, I don't understand why we would loan him unless we feel like some of our players are going to go out on loan and we need some kind of stopgap. But look, we have our own youngsters, so I think we might as well give them the opportunity to shine rather than help progress a youngster of another super team. And I know he's really highly talented, and maybe if it was a loan with an option to buy or something, that would be something we would look at. But a straight loan to help him develop next season doesn't make sense for me, because if we've got our own youth project and we've got a lot of talented young players that are within our camp, why spend resources developing a young player for another team?
The only way I can see it working potentially is if we smash all our budget on like kind of the forward line in terms of the wingers, maybe a striker. It's quite clear that we need like another left back as well, with Destiny Udogie, the only one really there, with Ben Davies being more of a centre back these days. I can see it happening if we look to loan out Jamie Donnelly, someone like that, to get consistent first team minutes at whether it be in the Championship or League One, wherever he end up going. But Arda Guler, if we loan him and we don't have too much of a budget to spend on number 10, that's the only way I see it happening.
Yeah, I guess. But even then, like, is he even going to be a guaranteed game time at Spurs next season? And if that's the case, what's the benefit of him coming here on loan when he's only going to be a bit part player like he would be at Madrid? So I mean, I think Leverkusen might be a better option for him next season, depending obviously if Alonso's still there or not. But I just see this as a very unlikely transfer. As much as I love the player and I think he's so talented, unless there's a real possibility of us signing him permanently, I don't think it's worth doing.
And also, like Leverkusen, they've got their own players like Florian Wirtz, who's playing unbelievable this season, who's the same position as him. Like, I don't see him getting that much game time at Leverkusen either, to be honest, but probably more of a chance there. But then again, from what I said, you're looking at the options that we have in the squad, and if we go really hard on maybe 2 wingers this summer, one on the left, one on the right, maybe it's Kulusevski that will move and start fighting Maddison for that number 10 spot. So maybe he'll even be further down the pecking order.
And
so
depends on the future of Lo Celso as well. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I find it unlikely we're gonna take him on a straight loan.
I agree. But anyway, he's a top talent. And if we can get him in on a permanent basis, that would be something that would really excite the fans and me as well. But let's talk about Pedro Neto once again. Paul O'Keefe saying that the club really like Wolves winger Pedro Neto. I'm not saying it happens by any means, but they appear to have already considered the injury risk of the player. The price could be more of a decisive factor. His contract is until 2027, so Wolves are going to demand big money, and the agent is difficult too. I think if any club offers around 60 million, Wolves will have a problem. Plus, the player will want to go, particularly if Spurs are in the Champions League, which would also justify us going to that price. Do you think 60 million gets Pedro Neto out of Wolves?
Do I think it depends how struck they are with FFP, because we know they had to sell Neves, they had to sell who else did they have to sell? Maybe I can't remember who else, but they definitely had to sell Neves in the summer.
Man City as well.
Yeah, Matthias Nunes. So they did have to make a couple of big sales to make sure they were in corners with FFP, and maybe it might be a case where they might have to sell if they want to bring anyone in, and they might need the money. So 60 million in this market, would that be enough? I mean, Nunes they sold for 45. Neves was similar. So I don't think it's a completely unfair price. I mean, I think in a perfect world, if they weren't struggling with FFP, they probably would demand about 80, I would say. But it's a bit similar to the Everton with Richarlison. They probably wanted more than 60 at that time, even though, you could argue overpaid even then. But they probably wanted more than 60, as they said. They wanted 80. But because they just were so desperate for the money, they had to take a bit of a lower fee. So they took 60. And Wolves might be in the same case. So for me, would I spend 60 million on Pedro Neto? In terms of the player he is, yes, 100%. I think quality-wise, I think it's a no-brainer. But as you say, it's those injury problems. If he can show his fitness from now to the end of the season, and start the majority of games and show that he can stay fit for a sustained period, I think I would push the button and I would do it. If he still picks up a few injuries from now to the end of the season and he shows he's struggling to stay fit, I think that would be a big question mark. But I love Pedro Neto. I think he's so perfect for us. I think he can play on both wings. He's one of the few wingers I see who's equally as good on both wings. It's so rare in this game. So you can see most wingers in the world have a dominant wing. But Neto, I can't see where he's better. Usually he can play on the left or the right. He's just as good. And he can go either way. He's so creative. He's literally the perfect winger for us if he can stay fit. So I think it probably would be worth the risk for me if he can stay fit. 60 million. Obviously, he's going to have a medical. The club will pick up whether this is a player who's really prone to injuries or he's just been unlucky. And for me, I love Pedro Neto, and I think he'd be the perfect signing for us.
I agree with you. I think from a purely footballing standpoint, he would be the perfect player to fit the squad. He's young. Every time you see him play for Wolves, when he does get on the pitch, he's probably like the best player on the pitch every single time. He just rips defenders to shreds with his dribbling ability. He's got quality at the end of it as well. The guy is absolutely top notch. And I think in terms of what we're trying to do, he is the perfect profile for us. Premier League proven as well. It's just those injuries that worry me. I'm very apprehensive about doing a deal like this for Pedro Neto. When you're spending big money like 60 million, that Spurs only spend that kind of money maybe once a window, and you need to get it right. And you need to be able to get him on the pitch week in, week out if you're going to spend that kind of money, because we've seen the front three that Spurs have at the moment is not completely ideal for what Ange wants to do. So if you do spend money like that on a Pedro Neto and he's not fit and you can't get him on the pitch consistently, then you're back to what we have this season, which, we need to move forward from that. So is it a case of him being unlucky with these injuries? I'm looking at his injury record and he's not played that much football over the past 2-3 years, but the injuries that he has had, it's not like recurring injuries. They are different injuries every time. So is it a case of him being injury prone, or is it a case of being him really, really unlucky? Haven't decided yet, but it does make me very worried about signing someone like him with the injuries that we've had this season as well.
Yeah, and that is going to be a factor when we put into the price. So I think Spurs, as Paul O'Keefe, will have considered that before they make the offer. So, and look, we've seen before there are young players, wingers, in fact, who have injury problems earlier in their career, and they can still have long, very good careers. I look back at people like Ian Robben, people like Gareth Bale earlier in their career. they were very injury prone and they picked up a lot of injuries, but they went on to become some of the best wingers in European football, and no one would have said they wouldn't have signed them even though they had those injuries, because they were absolutely brilliant players. So does Neto fall into that category? I think that's for each people to decide. I think from what I've seen since he's come back from his injury, I think this season he's been the best I've ever seen him. He's getting better as well. I've been so impressed. Every time I see it, I literally don't think I've ever seen him have a bad game. Literally, he's been that good. And you just imagine you put him in a team with better players like Spurs. Just imagine him like picking up the ball in those positions that Werner's been picking up the ball in consistently, how much damage he can do. It's a very, very exciting prospect. So for me, if we can get him in, it'll be an amazing deal. But yeah, it's all about whether Spurs adjudicate those injury problems to be an ongoing issue, or is it something which we believe he can overcome? And let's hope it's the latter. But what's positive, at least, is he's shown, even when he comes back from injury, it doesn't seem like some players come back from injury are not the same, But he's come back from injury. Not only is he recovered, but he's better than ever. So that's an indication that he can get over these injuries, maybe.
But I also feel like you can't use those examples of Arjen Robben and Gareth Bale, because every player is different. Every player has their own set of issues, and Pedro Neto has hardly been able to get on a pitch for the last couple of years. At least Gareth Bale and Arjen Robben were playing key parts in seasons. Especially Arjen Robben, he never seemed to really get over those injury problems throughout his whole career. He was playing 25 games a season throughout his whole career. Gareth Bale, once he put those injuries to bed, at the beginning of his Spurs career, he was playing at the end of his Spurs career over 30 games a season. So I mean, every case is completely different. So you can't really compare, in my opinion.
I think you can. I think Neto's had a serious ACL injury, look, players can get over it. They can. Just because you've had some serious injuries early in your career doesn't mean you're destined to be forever injury prone. And we have to make the decision.
If one player gets over it doesn't mean another player will get over it.
It doesn't mean you won't.
Different. Yeah, 100%.
So
but it's a risk. That's what I'm saying.
It's a risk, but that means you can never sign a player who's been injured before. You know what I mean? That's always a risk. But it's up to whether he can pass a medical or not. If he passes a medical, I'm all for it.
Next up, let's talk about Pape Matar Sarr. Fabrizio Romano says that Tottenham received more than 4 approaches this summer for Pape Sarr. Despite interest in the talented midfielder, Spurs head coach Ange Postecoglou considered him untouchable since the very first day of his job at Tottenham Hotspur. And there's a quote doing the rounds from Pape over the last 24 hours, and it says, "It's a great feeling to be part of things here at Tottenham. It's become like a family to me now, so it makes me happy to have renewed my contract with the club. The view is to stay here for as long as possible so I can really express myself on the pitch, enjoy the experience to the full with the fans and push on to win trophies." And it's great to hear these kind of words come from someone like Pap, who's so young and got such a massive future in this game.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that he's been integrated into the first team this season. Not just that, he's become one of our most important midfielders as well, because when we signed him, there was a lot of excitement about him. Obviously, we loaned him back to Metz, and when he came back, we expected him to maybe get more of a look in, and then Conte barely used him. And when he did use him, he looked good, but he just decided not to use him as much. And obviously, maybe a different manager might have taken the approach in the summer that maybe a loan deal would have been good for him, maybe get a seasonal first-team experience at a top league and maybe come back in a year's time. But I'm so happy that Ange resisted that temptation and looked at Pap and said, look, this guy is good enough to be part of the first team. This guy is good enough to come straight in and make a contribution. And I remember in pre-season, we were getting very excited about him. He was putting in some good performances, and I think he's not looked back. He's barely had a bad game. And for a 20-year-old or now 21-year-old in the Premier League at that age, is exceptional. It really is. And he's only getting better and better. And the fact that he plays such an important role for the team, and you look at him and how he is integrated with his teammates. Everyone loves him. He's like everyone's little brother. Everyone seems to be his best friend. So he seems to be the right character, absolutely, that Spurs want. And he's good. He seems to be a good enough player as well. And it's scary that he's this good now, in a year or two time, when he gets like 24, 25, how good's he really going to be? It's a scary thought. He might be one of the best midfielders in the league at that point with his trajectory. So I'm absolutely delighted we kept him this summer. And I think he's going from strength to strength. And what a midfielder.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I couldn't be more happy with Papa. I love him so much. His demeanour around the plays, the quality he shows on the pitch, the amount of ground he covers is just absolutely insane. I bring it back to that heat map that we saw just in the last game against Brighton, was just absolutely crazy. It really was. And I always found it strange why Antonio Conte didn't use him more, because it's not like he came in against like lower league teams in the cup and played really well. He played like a man of the match display against AC Milan in the San Siro in the Champions League, and then we never saw him again that season. It was such a peculiar situation where Skip also played well that game, and then we saw him play week in, week out after that. And it was just like, surely if you're looking at the two players, Skip and Pape Sarr, yeah, they're both young players, up and coming players, and both look good and both look like they have a good future ahead of him, but they look like two different ballparks, don't they?
Yeah, and I thought Sarr was better than Skip on that day,
100%.
even though they both played well. I thought Sarr was head and shoulders. He was man of the match, and then it's so true. He found it hard to get a look in after that game, which was really, really peculiar. And it's very interesting even to see, comparing last season to this season. Last season, Højbjerg and Skip were getting a lot more minutes last season over Sarr, and this season Sarr's become one of our most important players, and Højbjerg and Skip in terms of starts are finding hard to get a look in. So that really emphasizes that change of mentality and how we want to play, and playing players, trusting young players who are based on performance, not just because of experience. If we had a different manager, maybe if we had Conte in charge this season, it would still be Højbjerg and Skip getting over him. And the fact that we've got a manager trusting in the youth like Ange, that means Sarr's getting those opportunities and he's flourishing.
I think it's scary when you think about how good this guy can be. 21 years of age and he's performing at this level week in, week out in the Premier League. Like, how good can this guy be? Like, seriously.
It's going to be scary. As I was saying before, I mean, it's mad. It's mad to think about. Is this good? And also, at what point, do you say, is he could he be in the running for Young Player of the Year or nominated at least? Why not?
I think, like, when you're looking at players of his age, like, how old do you have to be to win young?
I think under 23 nowadays.
Under 23. So there are quite a lot of players.
There's Saka, there's Foden. Maybe not winning, but definitely nominated.
I'd love to see him nominated.
I don't see why not.
He deserves it for sure.
Not.
Definitely deserves it. Is Pedro Neto of that age as well?
He is, yeah, probably, because I think you have to be 23 or younger at the beginning of the season. So I think Neto's 23 now. So
there are quite a lot of players, and look, I think he should be in the running, but sometimes players of that kind of style don't really get a look in because, like, the more, I wouldn't say defensive, but they look like to more attacking players.
Yeah, they don't get the recognition.
And lastly, we're going to finish off from quotes from Heung-min Son. He was talking to Dan Kilpatrick, and the quotes are, "It's not nice talking about the tournament again, talking about the Asia Cup. It's really tough one to take, but it's part of football. It really hurts. But to heal is to be playing again, to make me smile again like Saturday. Obviously, I came back really fast to help the team. I want to be part of the team. We had a great result. I just want to help the team as much as I can, and I want to enjoy playing for the manager, playing with my teammates, and we'll see at the end of the season. There's only a few months left until the end of the season, but we don't want to talk about the future already. As I always said, I want to give my best that I can as a team that we can, and we will see where it takes us. We can't promise, but we will do our best to make it something special."
And let's hope so. I mean, obviously, top four or better than that would be a pretty special first season, considering all the problems Ange had to deal with, and the expectations going to the season was probably max top six, maybe sneak into fifth if we're lucky, kind of thing. And the fact we're battling for top four at this point in time, probably favourites to get into that top four, and only 5 points, off the top three as well, chasing them down, and they've got extra games to come with European football and stuff. It's amazing. And as in terms of Sonny himself, what he said there, he wanted to come back quickly. We saw with other players from Korea who didn't come back as quickly for their teams. Kang In Lee took a week holiday. Hwang Hee-chan wasn't available for Wolves last week because
that was due to injury.
Yeah, he did get injured in the last game, but he wasn't available. But Son was desperate to come back and help the team, and even if it was only for half an hour, it made all the difference, and that shows the character of Heung-min Son. He knows that he's the captain of this team, and he has a responsibility to be available if he is, and be part of the team. And everyone was so happy to have him back, and let's hope that there is a special end to the season. There's 15 games to go, a lot of points to play for. And who knows what can happen from now to the end of the season if we can get back to those levels that we were at the beginning of the season. Now we have a fully fit squad. Everyone seems to be together. And I think that period as well, when we had those injuries, will have helped the team, because it means when we have to change things, if players have to come in, they've been used to playing. They know the role. They have those minutes behind them. So in the long term, it might benefit us in those last 15 games if we have to make a few changes, if we want to rotate, all these different things. So I think it's very exciting the last 15 games. Yes, our form in terms of performance level in the last few games or so hasn't been at the best, but players are still getting into their rhythm, come back from injury, all these different things. Now we have a fully fit squad. And Son back now from the Asia Cup. It doesn't get more exciting.
It's mad to think about like what Spurs have been through this season in terms of injuries. We had our whole squad decimated pretty much after the first 10 games in that Chelsea game. Once they all started to come back, then you got our best players like Heung-min Son going out to the Asia Cup. You've got Bissouma, Pape Matar Sarr, who have been so important for us this season, going out to the AFCON. So this is the first time, we're going into the period now, the first time we've had a settled squad since probably the first 10 games of the season.
Yeah.
And to be only 7 points behind top of the league after going through all those troubles, it's just insane to me.
Yeah, I agree. And if I would have told you at the beginning of the season that 24 games into the season we're going to be only 7 points off the top, which obviously in the context that we're fourth, so it seems like a long way, but if you were second, 7 points off the top, people would say you're in a title race, wouldn't they? Obviously, I don't think we're going to win the league.
Outsider, yeah.
You know, you'd be an outsider, but you would say, you know, people are saying you're not completely out of it, only 7 points behind. Obviously, I don't think we will win the league. It's going to be a tall order. What the stupid computer said, we got 0.1%, which
so there's a chance.
There's a chance, which Ange was laughing about. But if we can just keep pace, keep winning our games, is all. I think the big factor is that run in April, Newcastle, Arsenal, City, Liverpool. It depends where we are coming into that run. I'm not going to talk about winning the league, but we'll see where we are in that run. If we're within touching distance of those teams and we have a chance to, like, if we beat them, we can go ahead of them, then you can never rule us out. But if we're completely out of it by that when it comes to those games, obviously that's we're never going to get a chance. But I think it's 8 games time. That's when that run starts. So those next 8 games, if we can build some momentum, who knows? Maybe something special can happen. And what did Maddison say? He feels something's brewing at Tottenham. He feels something special is brewing. Obviously, I'm focusing on top 4 right now. That's, I think, where the aim has to be. But when there's 7 points difference and, you know, other teams have European football and you don't, you just got to keep winning and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at Liverpool, Man City at the moment. They're just like steam trains at the moment. I mean, I know Liverpool lost to Arsenal, but Man City have won their last 5 or 6 games. They've proper kicked into second half gear. Liverpool, with Klopp leaving at the end of the season, there's something special about them going into the final run of the season. And Arsenal have kicked into gear as well. So you do find it difficult to see how we can finish above any of those 3 sides, to be honest. But you never know what can happen, you know. We're doing something special ourselves here. I don't think we're on the level of those 3 teams yet. But if we can go on a big run, like you say, from now until that run-in, who knows what can happen.
Exactly.
7 points can easily just turn into 4 just like that. Mm-hmm. And when you're 4 points behind, anything can happen.
I completely agree.
So that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories we brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always,
come on, you Spurs.